Our betters from the world over are meeting in Davos this week. It's another World Economic Forum Fest. And
from Forum Fest to Forum Fest.
it's off to a fast start.
Oh, okay.
Harvard planetary sciences professor Naomi Oreskes, she spent her time explaining her fear of social media companies that are not working in conjunction with, the government of the United States and, of course, governments the world over.
For a long time, I was on Twitter, and now it's become such a toxic place that I've concluded it's not a worthwhile place to spend time. And as you've said, it is exhausting. So you do have to pick and choose, and you have to think about where the places where you can get your message across. But I am trying to figure out, I have given up on X, what a scary name that even is, right? And I don't know what the alternative is right now.
You know what's a scary, toxic place?
That conference?
Harvard.
Oh, Harvard, yeah.
Yeah, that's a scary, toxic place, too. She hasn't given up on Harvard yet. Deep thinker, Harvard planetary science professor Naomi Oreskes. She's scared of the rebranding of Twitter. Mm-hmm. We also had another luminary from the Biden administration present to offer a review of what's happening in the globe, geopolitical deep thinking from Jake from State, who is a diplomat in the same way that Jake from State Farm is an insurance broker. So Jake Sullivan showed up to the World Economic Forum to give one of those, sucking on the temple tip of eyeglasses review of what's happening across the globe, this new world order.
I guess, and maybe this is the old kind of teacher in me coming out. I think of this a little bit more about a transition of eras rather than a transition of orders, but the two are kind of cousins of one another. The reason I draw the distinction is because I don't think the international order built after 1945 is getting replaced wholesale with some new order. It will obviously evolve as it has evolved multiple times over the decades since 1945. But I do think in a more sharp and distinctive way, we are moving into a new era, and that's what I talked about in my remarks, that we are, the post-Cold War era has come to a close. We're at the start of something new. We have the capacity to shape what that looks like, and at the heart of it will be many of the core principles and core institutions of the existing order, adapted for the challenges that we face today.
Oh, boy.
So enlightened.
That is heady stuff from Jake Sullivan. The institutions we have so much faith in that will, and that are so resilient, they'll just have to adapt to the new conditions on the ground, I see. So like the World Health Organization, Jake, we find from House investigators, the Chinese lab there in Wuhan, where the virus definitely did not emanate from.
For sure.
They mapped the coronavirus 2 weeks before Beijing told the world, a lead time that could have been critical in providing timely and more thoughtful, ideally, response. Probably more thoughtful wouldn't have happened, but our partners in combating the pandemic and in peace, the Chinese Communist Party that controls the World Health Organization. Those are the sorts of institutions that Jake Sullivan and all of those other deep thinkers at the World Economic Forum are going to lean on in the coming days and years and generations. For more on this meeting in Davos of our betters, we're pleased to be joined by Cliff May, president of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies and foreign affairs columnist for the Washington Times. Cliff, when do you get your star turn at the World Economic Forum?
Gosh, I missed it yet again. And I hear the skiing is good at Davos right now, too.
Indeed. So are the prostitutes, I hear. Yeah.
I missed that, but Dan, if that's the case, I'll make a note.
Well, from what I've heard, I'm also not invited. So what about, if there's not really anything to distill, it's just a bunch of, sort of Georgetown gobbledygook. But Jake Sullivan on the New World Order and these Davos deep thinkers. Actually, Walter Russell Mead had a good piece about it in the Wall Street Journal. What they're really convening to do is try to come up with a cover story for their massive failures and their increasing irrelevance. As much as there are conspiracies that abound about these people, they're shockingly ineffectual.
You're exactly right, and that was a very good, interesting, and revealing quote by Jake Sullivan that you played. He wants to believe, and maybe has convinced himself, that the international order is evolving. That's what he said. What he doesn't seem to recognize is the international order is not evolving, it's eroding. And there's no better example of that than what's happening in the Red Sea. Why is that? Because the oldest of international laws is freedom of the seas. All right? It goes back to the 1600s, actually, this idea that the seas belong to everybody and we want commerce. Well, we had the U.S. in its earliest days enforcing freedom of the seas in the Mediterranean when Americans were being taken hostage by jihadists. American sailors were. The Marines were born. That's what, from the shores of Tripoli, that's what that's all about. Now, what you have is the Houthis, this ragtag bunch, but they're not just that. They are proxies of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and they're saying America doesn't enforce freedom of the seas. We decide which ships go and which ships don't, and we will use violence and force to do so, and you're not going to stop us. And at first it's, well, we'll knock down their missiles, and now we've gotten a little bit stronger. Oh, if the U.S. doesn't enforce freedom of the seas in the Red Sea, then next thing it will be the Strait of Hormuz by Iran. They've already tried that. And then the South China Sea, we already have the Chinese Communist Party taking reefs, building them into islands, and militarizing them. This is the basis of the erosion. And Jake Sullivan may think that core principles and core institutions are being adapted. No, they're being taken over by Americans' enemies, particularly Chinese Communist Party, in partnership with Moscow, in partnership with Tehran, in partnership with North Korea, in partnership with Venezuela, partnership with Cuba, and they intend to run the world and make the United States a has-been power.
Well, what about the 2 Navy SEALs that are missing? What happened to them, and what's the latest?
There's a mission to look for them. Most likely, Amy, they are lost. And the blame for this goes to the Islamic Republic of Iran. And we need to understand that the Islamic Republic of Iran is an enemy of the United States. For 45 years, they have been chanting death to America. And we keep saying, I don't think you really mean it. How about we give you another $10 billion? How about we give you another $20 billion? How about this has been the policy of this administration and very much the policy of the Obama administration. If you remember, Obama said, I'm going to reach out my hand and I hope you will unclench your fist. Fine. That was an experiment. Maybe it was worth trying. You did, and now we know they will not unclench their fist. They intend to what they call the axis of resistance, their various proxies, Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the various Shia militias that are attacking Americans in Syria, Iraq. They want death to America. At the very least, what they want and what Putin wants and what Xi Jinping wants is to diminish the United States and make it into a second-rate power and say, we run the world, you don't, you had your time, it's over. And Jake Sullivan needs to understand that's not core principles and core institutions adapting. It's rather they're being transformed and taken over. World Health Organization is a very good example of that, Dan, as you pointed out, because it's largely been, and particularly during the COVID epidemic, was taken over by who? By the Chinese Communist Party, because I think we now know where the virus came from, and they didn't want people to know, they didn't want the World Health Organization either revealing that or talking about that.
Well, wait a second. Now, the Houthis, they were a designated terrorist organization prior to Biden, but then that designation was removed because I assume we were going to do like a summer jobs program in Yemen. They're just a bunch of young men who need jobs, and then they would give up their terrorist tendencies. But now they're designated as a terrorist organization again. Interesting. So did the summer jobs program fail, or what happened?
The summer jobs program did not go as planned. That's right. What happened was President Trump designated them as a foreign. The Houthis were rebels, by the way. They control most of the country, but not all of the country. There's still a government in place that we theoretically support, but doesn't have a whole lot of power anymore. So what happened? Designated. President Biden didn't like that. He lifted the designation. He said it's mostly for humanitarian reasons. We want to be able to get more aid in because people are suffering. They don't have enough food, medicine. Guess what? The Houthis have had plenty of missiles, helicopters that they've used to hijack ships, plenty of drones, plenty of other weapons. There's no problem with that. And no mention was made when the lifting of the designation on the Houthis of what their slogan is. It's on every flag they have, and it makes clear it's like their mission statement. And what does the slogan say? It says, "God is the greatest, death to America, death to Israel, a curse upon the Jews, victory to Islam." So that's what they want.
You could interpret that in so many different ways, though, right?
Yeah. It may not be. Sounds bad, but maybe not, yeah.
Right. Cliff May, president of the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies, foreign affairs columnist for the Washington Times. Cliff, thanks as always.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Amy.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
This is Chicago's Morning Answer.
Your show keeps me alive during the week. There's nobody I'd rather listen to between 5 and 9 in the morning than you guys.
On AM 560, The Answer. If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. The IRS just rolled out a new program to help struggling taxpayers more easily resolve their tax problems. It's called the Taxpayer Relief Initiative, and it opens up powerful new options for people looking to get back on the right track with the IRS. And no one knows this program like the professionals at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution company. They've resolved over $1 billion in tax debt for their clients and have the expertise and experience to help you. One easy call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries of wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Make today